Hey guys, welcome back. So I don't know that I have ever really made a video about my own PC. I started to several times. I ended up with bits and pieces, but today we can accumulate them. Or accumulate them? Is that even a word? I don't know. Anyways, we're going to patch together a video about my own PC. This was my PC for quite a while. It was a Ryzen 2700 on an ASRock Taichi X470 motherboard in this pretty large Antec Dark Avenger case. Unfortunately, while cleaning the dust out one day, it fell and it took some pretty significant damage. I used it for a little while afterwards, but then I finally moved over to a different case in a much smaller form factor. This is the Metallic Gear Neo Mini V2 by Fantex, a pretty nice case for a budget model. It was originally silver, but I powder coated something more to my liking, and I moved my system into it with my 2700 on my wife's old X370 Fatality, along with my R9 Fury. For cooling, I was using and will continue to use the AMD Wraith Prism Spire Max Stealth, whatever the hell this cooler is called, that came with the 3800X. And powering it is the 800 watt shop power supply from Enermax, simply because I don't have another one suitable for this build right now. Also moved over to 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 2.5 inch drives that stores a lot of my stuff. I wasn't sure how the case would cool the GPU since it sits almost on the floor, but in all actuality, there's enough ventilation from the bottom that cooling it was never an issue, so kudos to Fantex for that. Unfortunately, the motherboard itself had a lot of issues, and that's pretty much why I replaced it in my wife's PC, and the issues only got worse. So I broke down and bought a new motherboard, the Gigabyte Aorus B550i Pro AX, to finally be done with the headaches of the ASRock board. I also figured it'd be upgradable in the future when the Ryzen 5000 series CPUs came out, but now that I'm in the future, I can look back and see that that was something of a joke. So out with the old and crappy and get it ready for the new. The motherboard's removed, so let's check out the new hardware. The fan splitter here was bought separately. You can never have too many of those lying around. And of course the manual, which you can just toss. I'm just kidding. Keep that thing handy at all times when you're building. And here's the motherboard. Pretty decent looking considering you won't actually see any of it. It has a decent heatsink for the chipset and the NVMe, built-in I/O shield, heat-piped VRM cooler, and another nice feature is the backplate on the rear. So yeah, the whole thing is pretty chonky. So I'm going to start by moving over to the M.2 drive and get it mounted since it's going to be going under the front heatsink and it's going to be pretty much inaccessible once the board is installed in the system. Deciding on RAM, I do have this Team Group DDR4 4000, but it's really not as good of a kit as my other choice, the T-Force Extreme DDR4 3200 C14 kit, which has pretty much run flawlessly on a Ryzen 2700 at 3466 C14, so I'm just going to continue to use that. And it looks like we're about ready to mount the cooler, so I just need to add a little thermal goop and get it mounted. And again, I'm going to be using the Protronics Series 7, which I think this stuff is made mainly for LED heat sinks, like industrial applications and whatnot. But I actually love it for PC heat sinks. It doesn't get pasted up like some of the other popular brands and rip out your CP with the cooler when you try to remove the cooler. It's pretty decent stuff. So now that everything's installed and feeling very optimistic, I didn't bother to test anything. I just put it all together and hope for the best. And of course, that's when I find out that the B550 chipset does not support Ryzen 2000 CPUs at all. So off to Newegg to see what I can find. And here we are a couple months later, and I finally got around to ordering the CPU, and it should be delivered any time now. In the meantime, I've been using this cobbled up pile of parts to get by till it does. This is the 2700 on that fucked up X370, but one thing I did find out is it seems the main issue is the VRAM heatsink gets wicked hot. So I've been able to get it to stay running pretty much with a fan blowing directly on it, but hopefully soon I won't even have to worry about it anymore. And 3 days later, awesome is finally here. I use the term loosely as I didn't really splurge on a CPU. I found a really strange CPU that was apparently only available in China for a while, but now Newegg carries it, and that explains why I didn't even know it existed. But that would be the Ryzen 5 3500X. A really strange CPU with 6 cores and 6 threads, but it was the cheapest third gen CPU I could find, and it's going to hold me over until the market stabilizes, which it eventually will, and then I can upgrade. And finally, with everything installed, the moment of truth. Flip a switch, push a button, hold my breath. Yes! Finally, a working system in a small case that I can actually finish. And yeah, as far as cores go, this may be a downgrade from 2700 that had 8 cores and 16 threads, but it is on a working motherboard in a smaller form factor that I can live with. I know I could have just bought a B450 or X470 ITX board, but the truth is, I wanted something newer because I had originally planned on getting a 5000 series CPU with a RX 6000 series GPU, but of course, the way things went, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. So for now, I have a working system in a case I like, in a size that I'm perfectly happy with, so I can now wait out the drought or blight or whatever you want to call it of new parts and upgrade once the market returns to normal. So it looks like I have some tweaking to do yet, but overall it looks like this is going to work out pretty good. This just goes to show that if you work hard, you have patience, you too can have a mediocre system fully working in only a couple of months. I'm just kidding, guys. This was a lot of bad luck on my part plus procrastination. So this system's going to be okay for now. I'm definitely going to be able to make do with it. So with that being said, you guys take care. I will see you on the next one.